This has been a really interesting conversation. We're talking about the struggle that many people are experiencing right now, including ourselves. How about it, Alecia?
Yeah, it's true. We really kind of do an overview of all the different kinds of struggles that we have, everything from the collective struggle to the mental and the emotional, and even the physical and the spiritual struggle. We also pepper it with some pearls of wisdom and some things that have been definitely helpful for us that we think might be helpful for you.
So much of what we talk about may be speaking directly to you, because there's one thing that, in my observation, is that we're all going through something right now. And we all have different definitions of what that means. It's got some layers to it, so we hope you enjoy it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chicks Talking Shift. I'm Angel.
And I'm Alecia.
Well, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm surprisingly good. I'm feeling kind of light and airy today.
I
How
know
about
you
you?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's Friday. We're recording this on a Friday, and I'm feeling like I'm living the dream. Like I'm really living the dream. Like life is becoming a storybook. It's very, very fascinating, actually. Very good place to be.
Oh, it is a great place to be. Today, I wanted to tell you something. Okay, so on our last podcast
Yeah.
on unzipping the technology shift,
Yeah.
we talked about technology. And you remember you asked me if I made a call on the payphone, and I told you I was still too busy.
Oh, yes. I was so curious about that. I know.
Yes. So this morning I did that walk again, and I stopped by the payphone. And so I took a picture of the payphone. And then I had remembered to bring quarters with me. And so I went to lift up the receiver and put quarters in. The ear part of the receiver, it was all just wires.
Oh, funny.
Disappointed. I was so disappointed because I wanted to call my husband and say, hey, I'm calling you from a payphone because I haven't been on a payphone in 35 years.
Right.
Yes.
So did you get your quarterback?
I'd never put it in.
Oh, okay.
Always see if there's a dial tone first.
And the little change thing on the bottom, it's
Oh, that's the last thing I checked before I went.
You always had to.
And so when I did it, I checked it, and my sister-in-law said, I was just getting ready to do that.
That's so funny. That was like free money,
It was like free money. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. That's a great story. I'm so glad you went back and satisfied my curiosity on that. That's too cool. Let's manifest a payphone, a working payphone.
That'd be awesome. Keep your eyes peeled.
Yes. In
fact, now I want to have the experience.
Why don't we put it out to our listeners and our viewers? That if there is a working payphone in your area of the planet, in your neck of the woods, as they say, take a picture or a video of you making a phone call from it and share the experience with us on our Facebook.
And even better, I'd love a story to find somebody that found a working payphone that can phone a friend and just say, hey, I'm doing this old school. I'm giving you a call off a payphone. Just wanted to give it a try. And tell us about your experience.
That's fun. That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the other part. Whoever it is you call from the payphone, you just have to say one thing you admire about them while you're on that call.
Oh, that's nice. Yes.
Okay.
That right there. That's excellent. I love it.
All right. Well, we have an interesting conversation ahead of us. This Chick Chat was created from a Facebook post that you put out there on your recent birthday.
Yeah.
And so that's where we came up with the topic of today's Chick Chat. So why don't you tell the story about the post, your perspective, and then add some sparkle to that struggle.
I see what you did there. Yeah, so recently I had my 60th birthday. And on that day, I just realized that I was just feeling a little bit down. And I just feel like I've had wolves fighting inside me lately. And for me, it's a bit of a struggle. And so I just posted a little meme that said, "It's my birthday." And I said, "Happy birthday to me." And then I just said, "Hey, look, I've been having a little bit of struggle lately. If you don't mind, post something nice that I'll enjoy reading and give me a little birthday soul boost." And so, oh my
Love
gosh,
that.
Angel, I can't wait to go back through them again. So many beautiful things came back. And I'm going to save that and I'm going to use it as a mirror to remind me of my reflection when I forget who I am.
Oh, that's beautiful, Alicia.
Yes. No, it was so beautiful. It took me days to go through and answer back because there were so many comments. I wanted to take time and be present with each one because people took the time to do that. But the interesting thing was is I realized I was feeling a little bit of energy coming from it. I felt all the good vibes and the magic, but there was another underlying energy. And I thought, what is that? And as I started kind of feeling into it, what it felt like to me, doesn't make it true, but what it felt like to me was the fact that a lot of people are struggling right now. And one of the conversations you and I have had before, and that I have with several girlfriends, are the fact that we use the same words, often not realizing that we have a different meaning when we use them. So I was looking at the word struggle and that I had mentioned that. And I was feeling like maybe some people were viewing my struggle through their lens of struggle, which many have much more severe struggle than me because I've got a really peaceful life. And I do have things easy. Most of the time when I'm struggling, it's an internal struggle. It's me trying to bring that fire up, self-excavate, and figure out what needs my attention. So all of a sudden I started figuring out that I started realizing that maybe people were reading struggle more through their lens than realizing, because I never really qualified what mine was. And then you and I started having a conversation about that, and we realized there's so many different kinds of struggle. So that was kind of a way to unearth, well, let's have a conversation about struggle because there's so many different facets of it. Because of all that, we decided to put a post on our Chicks Talking Shift Vibe Tribe page and ask people, hey, what are you struggling with? And some of the responses were
Oh,
really interesting. One of the ones that I found interesting was your response, Angel. Do you remember what you said?
yes, because it's something I've struggled with my whole life. And it is, I don't know where the programming came from, couldn't tell you, but I have always had this underlying intention behind behaviors or attitudes, anything based on what other people may think. Now I question the authenticity of some choices I've made. Were they really being true to myself, or was it because of outside sources driving that decision? That's been a struggle. It is something that I have to work very hard at become aware of, number one, and then adopting a new belief around it.
Do you notice that the longer you work with it, the easier it gets and the clearer it becomes for you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Once you shine the light on it and see it, that's the first stage of transformation, realizing that's what happens in this first stage.
Mhm.
So now that I know that is a thing, I can go through the transformation process with it. So yes, I did post the fact that, yeah, I care about what will people think? That's always in the back. Well, what will people think? And it kind of holds your morals and values in place too. But what I loved about that post was that we got some responses from people, and it's like you created this space, gave everybody else permission to share their struggle because of your original post. It's a very interesting thing, this thing we're talking about called struggle.
Yeah.
I really liked on our Facebook post Julie Neal responded. She said, my struggle has been the long running struggle of so many finding balance between work, home, relationships, and self-care, especially when I love my work. I find that I go till I then just have to rest and recharge. So it feels very much like an on-off switch rather than a dimmer switch I need.
Mm-hmm.
How many of us can relate to that? So that was really beautiful. I
That
really
was beautiful. I think
appreciate
most
Julie
people
for,
relate to that.
yeah, for feeding into the space, one, and for two, sharing that beautifully written post. So what is your perspective? How would you define struggle?
For me, struggle is discomfort. It's an uncomfortable feeling, regardless, because we've got all kinds of struggles, right? And so regardless of what the struggle is, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, financial, it's uncomfortable. And so what do we know about discomfort? Often means change and transformation is
Oh,
in the air.
yes. I love the caterpillar and butterfly analogy.
And so the whole story goes, once there was a man that found a butterfly, and it was in a cocoon still. As he watched that cocoon waiting for that butterfly to emerge, one day a small opening appeared in the cocoon. And so he just sat and he watched the butterfly as it kind of struggled its way out of that cocoon. But then it got to a certain point and he didn't think that it was going to make it. It was such a struggle. And so he thought, this is as far as it's going to go and it can't go any further. I need to help it out. So he got some scissors and he put a little snip in the cocoon to make a little bit more space so it could come out. The butterfly came out, but it wasn't right. It couldn't unfurl its wings. Its wings kind of kept clamped down and its body was was kind of plump and swollen. And its little wings were shriveled. And he watched it, waiting for it to fly or emerge, and it just didn't. And what he didn't know was that struggle of that butterfly trying to wiggle out of that cocoon would squeeze that swollenness out of the body and did what it needed to do to the wings so that the wings could open up and it could fly. And it's just such a great story. I think about it all the time when I have struggle. That's why I really try not to judge it as good or bad or right or wrong. I try to see it as an opportunity for growth because every struggle makes us stronger and also teaches us how to fly. So that's kind of when I think about struggle, in the discomfort of it. I may not be happy with that discomfort, but I know that there is growth and there are gems on the other side of that struggle. So that's like one of my very favorite things, to show how to change that lens of perspective a little bit so that you see struggle a little bit differently and don't necessarily judge it as negative. Admit that it's uncomfortable. Yeah, this is uncomfortable. I don't like it a bit, but I know something good's going to come out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
As does all transformation, because that struggle does push and drive that personal evolution. If our lives were just perfect and harmonic and peaceful and all the time, how would you even grow? How would you evolve? That's not why we came here, to have this human experience. I believe we came here for the struggle. I believe that's part of the human experience that we look forward to having, because we don't have any when we're out of this earth suit. We're getting kind of deep there. Deep talk.
Deep shift. Here we go again.
Deep shift.
Can't stop us.
Oh my gosh. So, hey, be sure to follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and if you're listening to this podcast, be sure to check out our YouTube videos. And if you're watching us right now, be sure to download us on a podcast so you can take us with you in your back pocket. You know, this is the shift. Absolutely. So this is the shift we love talking about. And we had looked up a couple different definitions. Okay. Do you have those in front of you? Would you like to read them?
I do. It was so interesting to me because that was part of my process because I wanted to write about it a little bit. And I thought, well, maybe if I wrote about the struggle and kind of the difference in that we see in words sometimes, that maybe a little bit would come out. And I thought, well, I wonder what the definition is. So I went to look up the definitions, and there were a couple. One that I ran across was, it says it's to make forceful or violent efforts to get free of restraint or constriction. Kind of reminds me of the butterfly, right? But
Mhm.
with the particular kind of struggles that I have a tendency to have lately, mine aren't that. So that felt a little bit heavy and a little bit difficult for me. Another one was that you just engage in conflict. A struggle could be an engagement in conflict. I thought that kind of resonates because it reminds me of the two wolves inside, right? I'm kind
Mhm.
of two minds. I want this, but yet I want that, and trying to figure out what that balance is between the two. And then one other was to strive to achieve or attain something in the face of difficulty, in face of resistance. The way that I saw that was, where are your thoughts and actions out of alignment? That's kind of that friction, that this or that, and trying to figure out where the balance is between that.
There's also this inner struggle, the personal struggle, different types of struggle. One that comes to mind for me is right now, what weighs on me is this collective struggle. It's what we're all like trudging through the mud right now. It's heavy. What thoughts do you have around the collective struggle?
There's so many streams that feed into that river. Because we visited the technology like we did in our last podcast, it kind of has those older days in mind for me a bit. And I'm still been kind of simmering with that. Back in the day, in the 60s and the 70s, you didn't have a handful of channels, and television wasn't 24/7. They had that test pattern or whatever that would come on at midnight or 11 o'clock, and that would just be that image all night long until the next morning when the programs would come on. And all of a sudden I realized we all had the same lives back then. We were fascinated with this new technology called a television. And so what happened is, back in the day, if you wanted to watch television, you had to sit in front of the television at a certain time to watch a certain program. And then I kind of came out and I took a bird's eye view of that. And I thought about all the people in all the homes lining up in front of their television on a Sunday night at 7 o'clock to watch the Disney show, or to watch Leave It to Beaver, or one of those
Brady
old
Bunch.
Brady Bunch, exactly,
Yeah.
all of those. And we were all watching it at the same hour on the same day. And the next day we'd meet at the water cooler at work and have a discussion of what was a collective experience. We no longer have that. Technology has us all doing our own thing at our own time.
Wow,
And
that is so
so,
true.
but look at how that shifts things up. And
Yeah.
we
Yep.
wonder why we can't agree.
Yeah, there's more options today. There's
Yes.
more options of what to believe. That's a really good point. And it shows the power and the influence that the different technology and media and devices have in our lives.
What I start looking at is individuals. As we've all started having these different experiences, what it's done is it has grown our individuality more than what it used to be. Because it's so fascinating when you look at old pictures, everybody was pretty much dressed the same. People didn't have purple hair and short hair and long hair. There was kind of a proper way to dress and what was acceptable. We don't have that any longer. I think that individuality, I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. These are kind of collective growing pains, aren't they?
They really are. It's changing that collective belief as well.
As we change as individuals, we start to have different belief systems. And even with the internet, with being able to access everything, we're learning things globally about other spiritualities and other cultures. And we're finding out that, there's a whole lot of differences between us. And you look at some other religions and you think, well, that's interesting. That's a pretty good thing right there. I kind of like that. And it might be different than what you were raised with or what your traditional belief system is. But what can happen is that it can also create a spiritual crisis, because now you're not necessarily going to be dropped in a convenient box. You get to come into that box with your own flavor. Also, I think it helps bring clarity of what we really want and who we really want to be in the midst of all the changes that we're going through.
We're calling it an awareness activation.
Yeah.
It's what to activate your awareness around as it relates to the collective struggle, because you're right, it could lead to a spiritual crisis. What we know about a spiritual crisis is that also impacts our mental well-being, our emotional well-being, and then before you know it, you've got all kinds of crises.
It just dawned on me. I decided I didn't like that word crisis. It's so heavy. Or maybe spiritual confusion.
Yeah, crisis is heavy.
Yeah, crisis is real, and not that it doesn't create some real heavy stuff for some people, but usually it's not necessarily that heavy, because I see crisis as almost like a breakdown in a way.
Well, maybe we call it a struggle. We call it a spiritual struggle, because the struggle you get over. What other awareness activations can you think of that we can tap into while we are figuring this shift out collectively?
It really helps to ground me in the knowing that I'm not 100% right, nor are you. Nobody's 100% right. And a whole lot of it's just opinion and belief system. And so if we can adopt a little bit more flexibility in that allowance for ourselves and others, I think that it eases some of that struggle that we feel inside, because it's stressful to judge somebody.
Judgment is stressful. It
It
creates
is stressful.
separation. We talked about this in a previous
Yeah.
podcast. What a point. None of us are 100% right. Just going into a conversation with that understanding and that level of awareness changes the conversation, because
does.
then you become more curious, you become open to learning about what you might not be right about and seeing their perspective. So that's huge. What about the mental and emotional struggle?
Listen, I've been through it myself. I am typically a really Zen chick. And the last couple of years, I've been on a roller coaster. And so for me, that's been fascinating to observe, because I'm not used to that. Most people might be dealing with at least a small bit of it, is anxiety and depression. And part of what creates that is the uncertainty in the collective. So many things are uncertain, so many things are chaotic, and so many things are confusing. So it kind of creates a bit of mental instability. If you're paying attention to what's going on, you should be curious as to what is happening here. It's hard to find the answers. And it's hard enough to find the answers, but then you got to sort through misinformation and disinformation, and you don't even know what's true. That creates a lot of anxiety and depression in people, because you can't get your bearings. You can't get any roots or anchored in anything to help stabilize you. It leads us into a place of really not knowing who to trust. And what are our trusted resources anymore? Because I'll tell you what, I used to have a lot of trusted resources. A lot of those I don't trust anymore. I don't know about you. How about you? Have you found that?
Absolutely. I have learned to trust my own sensing about things. I find myself saying that a lot more than I ever have. It used to be, some people are, oh, I think this, or I feel that, or I believe this. You'll say one or the other. And depending on where people operate, if they're more cerebral, they're going to answer more to a question asked saying, what do you think? If people are more feelers, you ask that person, how do you feel about this? Or what do you believe to be true? And now instead of saying I feel or I believe or I think, I'm saying I'm sensing this. And I think we all have that internal guidance system inside us that when we tap into it, we can sense the truth. You can sense what's right for you and wrong for you. And that sense, that sensation is so strong, and it is so incredibly motivating and inspiring. You want to follow it.
That is an absolutely excellent point. Yeah.
That's the only way I know how to trust, because the resources, to your point, are questionable. That's where that emotional, mental struggle can stem from. There's no question. We're losing the trust in humanity, the trust in each other, the leadership, the sources that we once depended on. There's so much of that causes that confusion.
Mhm.
And then there's also, let's throw in the social media aspect, where we are constantly comparing ourselves to others, constantly comparing our lives to other people. And look how happy they are. Well, we're not as happy as they are. Look at that couple. Look at that vacation. We're not going on that vacation. We're always painting a better picture on social media than our lives truly exhibit. That's what I loved about your post, is you were sharing something that was not, hey, look how great my life is. It was like all of a sudden people were like, oh my gosh, struggling. Yes. Oh, and that humanity came out to want to help and provide encouragement and support and nurturing. And in all those posts, it was just so loving.
One of the things that dawned on me when you were talking about that the comparison is it made me realize a friend of mine, Brittany, said one time, comparison is the thief of joy. And you talking about that made me realize that comparison can lead to discontent. And I think there's a lot of discontent,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
great point.
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with the emotional and mental struggle that we're experiencing.
And then, we were talking about the trusted resources and who to trust. And well, when you're confused about those things, what happens is the uncertainty breeds fear in us. It causes confusion and fear. The ego does not like to be confused. It likes to know at all times what's going on. And so, what we often do is then we hunker down. This is what makes us tribal, right? And that can lead to closed mindedness and resistance. And we need to be aware of those things, because the closed mindedness, that's just ego being afraid, not wanting to either admit that it's wrong or just being afraid to change its mind because it likes the security. It's kind of like the devil you know is better than the one you don't. We have a tendency to stick often in uncomfortable places and bad relationships just because at least it's something that we know. It doesn't leave us off balance and it doesn't make us uncertain.
I mean, to your point about who to trust, nobody likes to feel manipulated. No one likes to feel had, like, oh, you got me. There's some of that we're all sensing. We're being manipulated by the media, what to think. I think from a human and spiritual perspective, it's hurting our hearts. We need to have the heart to move forward. We need kindness. We need that heart center to be open.
When we were talking about the collective, we talked about what should we be aware of? What do we need to activate in our awareness to make us a little bit more flexible and a little bit more, help us be a little bit more balanced?
I think that compassion fatigue is a thing. I think that's what could potentially impact our heart health. Having awareness around just questioning and opening yourself up, that curiosity that we were talking about.
So I think that one of the things that we can really be aware of is our mental flexibility. How much are we dug in to what we believe? Look, I've lived on the planet for a long time, and I've really gotten to the point to where I know what I believe right now. For now, today, this is what I believe, but my mind and my heart are always open to taking in new information to change that. So I think instead of a belief system being something that's solid and cemented and deeply rooted, I think we need a little bit more shallow roots, especially because a lot of veils are being ripped away and we're learning a lot of things that we didn't know before. And so if we're a little bit more flexible and will at least consider, this is what I think that I know, and this is what I think I believe, For now. It's like the magic phrase that you mentioned in one of our other podcasts that you always say, I'll say something, and then you'll say, until now.
Until now. Yes.
Yes.
And I
And
love
it's
that. Your point, for now, because everything is evolving. And when you can follow it up with, that's just the way it is for now, it leaves it open. I love that.
And those flexible thoughts end up neutralizing some of your inner resistance, because it's only being really grounded in what you believe that starts to create up the resistance, because whatever doesn't show up in what your belief system is must be wrong. Yeah. Yeah. So
Right.
flexibility of mind and heart.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What else you got in there? Let's dig inside Alecia and see what else she's got.
I don't think I have anything. I
Let's
know we
excavate all the wisdom.
well, let me dig it up and see what I got here.
You're on a roll.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so what we know is that all of these things, all of the uncertainty, all of the chaos, all of the question, even the questioning yourself, can create a lot of fear. Is fear mental or is it emotional? It's both, because some fear you're thinking it's a fearful thought, and others you can feel it in your body. So that fear can create an emotional struggle. So you kind of want to watch for that fear and make sure that you're personalizing it when you're in a fear. And often the fear is in the always, what do we talk about? If you're afraid, your thoughts are strung out in the future. Because if you're present, you know what's going on right here, right now. And you're not worried about the past because it's already happened. So if you stay present, then that can neutralize some of that fear, and that can take away some of that mental and emotional struggle.
Nice little pearl wisdom tossed in there.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
So true. So true. That's a very interesting point about fear. Where's the fear coming from? I love that.
Yeah.
Because if it's in your mind, it's probably from some external source.
Or for some past experience.
Yeah, past experience.
Jim Self talks about that all the time.
Absolutely.
We are so programmed when we have those difficult, painful experiences in our life. Oftentimes we don't realize how much we close ourselves down, just absolutely determined that we will never be humiliated or hurt like that ever again. And what it does, and we project that on new situations, that it's not necessarily that thing, but we're just the ego's trying to protect us.
So that's interesting thing to become aware of. All I'm going to say is just be kind. I think that's what we can do for humanity, is just be kind to each other, to help each other with our mental and emotional struggle, because we don't know. We're putting on facades most of the time. A lot of people don't know that we're struggling and suffering in silence.
The kindness, that's a big one.
So pay attention to it. Pay attention not only to your own kindness, but to the kindness of others, because when you do, you'll have an emotional response, and that is magnetic. That raises the vibes when you can get excited about somebody else's kindness and appreciate it. There is also the physical struggle and the spiritual struggle. We talked a little bit about that. What about that physical struggle?
For me, I've had very little physical struggle, but I'm really cognizant about how many people do. That they struggle with, chronic pain and disease and even stress, right? Stress does all kinds of negative things to the body. COVID, you and I have talked about it. You have had lingering issues from COVID.
I think the COVID virus is agitating my nervous system, which is causing my body to be in a stress zone. Your body is reacting as if it has been through trauma. And so you'll experience the same symptoms as if you've been through trauma. Hair loss. I have a constant eye twitch in my left eye ever since COVID. There are a lot of crazy symptoms that I know I am struggling with still. And I know a lot of people are, because I read about it. And then I talk to other people and they're like, I have that too. And it's like, whoa, wow, this is really crazy. So it's a global pandemic. it's going to cause some physical struggles, collective struggles. And we know, Alecia, anytime you feel like crap, you're not yourself, you're not your happy-go-lucky person, and you take it out on the people that are closest to you. You don't mean to, but they're the ones that kind of get the brunt of it. So it can impact your relationships. There's all kinds of things that we need to look at here and be
Right.
aware of.
Have you had any physical struggles?
I had cancer, and that's hard for me to say. I had uterine cancer at a pretty young age and had to go through surgery and have radical hysterectomy. And I have never given cancer the attention or energy from that. I
Yes.
just don't associate myself as being a cancer survivor, but that was definitely a huge struggle, the emotional trauma of it. Thank God for yoga and meditation and
Yeah.
my spirituality. That's
Yeah,
all I have to say.
absolutely.
You know,
Well, and look at you now. I got to give you mad props, girlfriend. On Thanksgiving, you ran a 5K. It's the first one you ever ran, right?
right.
And so you've been running only for a handful of months, maybe,
Yeah. Since June.
and you had a really good time. I mean, good, your time.
I
You
had a
good
great time. Yeah. This was Brad.
Yes,
We
exactly.
always have a good time. But yeah, I did. It was my best time. It was a personal record. And I've been training, for months.
Yes.
So that was a huge accomplishment to start something so physical at this age that I can excel in. It feels good. I mean, that's a great example of a struggle using running, because at first it's like, oh my gosh, I'm hot, I'm sweaty, and you start focusing as you're running on, I can't breathe as well as I'd like, my heart's racing really quickly. And all these things are occurring that you're starting to become aware of. But if I focused on all those things, I would have stopped after the first day. But I noticed afterwards, I started feeling really good. And it was helping my breathing. And I felt detoxed from sweating and all those things that I was struggling through. Okay. I started feeling the benefits of them. And I would look forward to sweating and detoxing and increasing my heart health and my breathing capacity, and all those things started improving. It was really cool to watch. So through that struggle of learning how to run, I've really learned to appreciate what it's doing for the human body. And the secret sauce is the shoes. It really is. Anybody could run if you buy the right shoes. I'm just telling you, if I could do it, anybody could do it.
That's funny. I've really never wanted to run. It's just not been a thing. It's so uncomfortable for me. Maybe I don't like the struggle. Maybe I don't
And
like
we
the
know
struggle.
that's true, right? Is
Yeah.
there some truth to that statement?
Yeah.
Nobody likes the struggle, but that's interesting. Yeah.
And so your running also probably goes back to the mental and emotional, right? It nurtures good mental and emotional vibes to keep you more balanced and more healthy thinking and feeling.
You have no idea. I utilize that time to visualize. I use that time to do energy work, and I ground myself as I'm running through breathing, through meditative breathing and breath work. I do chanting. We're like running, Om Shanti Om. Crazy lady chanting running down the street, but I turn it into a spiritual experience. And a lot of times I'll just want to put in my headset and listen to Matt Kahn or Jim Self or Lee Harris, some of my favorite spiritual gurus out there, and just run and listen and get inspired that way as well. It's just a really powerful use of time. So
Damn it. Well, I'd say because you're multitasking when you're running. Oh my God, who
have
knew?
to. Yes, definitely. Boy. Okay. Well, we trailed off a little bit on that, but anyway, I want to acknowledge that there's financial struggles out there as well that I think would fall into the physical struggle realm, because that's part of our 3D and third dimensional human experience here. And I've been there. I've made a lot of money and I've made very little money. And that is a very stressful, difficult time in life to go through financial, I was gonna say crisis, but it's temporary because you can always make money. It's a commodity you can go out and get. Unlike time, once you use it, it's gone. Money, we can always go out and find ways to create it and manifest it.
It's so true. And there's a lot of shame around financial struggle. Talking about the 3D, 5D, right now, I've got some physical imbalance. I've got a couple of things going on. And so when my body's imbalanced, for me, my process is I must be imbalanced inside. And so at least seeking, is there a spiritual or a mental or emotional imbalance that I haven't really been acknowledging that is now manifesting and condensing down into a physical imbalance? So that's one of the things that's kind of one of my processes, is always when I notice that the body's kind of wonky.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you need to do a self-check and you need to see, are you balanced? Are you unbalanced in other ways? Because there are probably other things that are leading to that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. That resistance.
Yes.
All of this can be healed when we tap into that higher level of consciousness, but when you have a spiritual struggle and you don't know how to respond. And so many light workers and people that I know that were on a mission and following their calling are just sitting back right now saying, I don't know what to do. I mean, the struggle is just not knowing how to respond or what to do because we've never been here. I think a lot of souls are really trying to figure out what purpose they serve, what their soul purpose is here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of an energetic struggle, isn't it?
It definitely is.
And so what you just mentioned on the Chicks Talking Shift Vibe Tribe page, when we were talking about struggle and asking people, that was my struggle. That's where I've been lately in my struggle. That's what I was referencing when I said I've been struggling a bit lately, because I'm finding that I have to constantly go inside and I need to constantly check myself. And we talk about the puzzle pieces. We've done that. We've talked about that many times in our podcast. And I have put my puzzle pieces down more times in the last couple of years than I think I ever have in my entire life. And part of the reason that I keep putting them down and re-examining my life is because everything's changing so quickly. I'm changing quickly. I do not have the same belief systems that I had a couple of years ago. It has changed me internally. And so as things change externally and as I change internally, compassion fatigue, I start to get overwhelmed. I don't know how to respond. When I mentioned the struggle, mine's a spiritual struggle of, do I still have the same purpose? Has something shifted? What needs to stay? What needs to go? What room do I need to create for something new to come in that I don't even know what that thing is yet?
Yes, that's an excellent point. I know so many people can relate to that. That's when you really have to listen to that inner guidance system for direction and see, is this the path I'm supposed to go? Or is this the path? Okay, well, this is showing up. That's interesting. How do I feel about this, really? And be true to yourself.
What that does for me is that I've been in overwhelm more in the last few years than I've ever been in my life. And
Mhm.
so for me, that overwhelm kind of creates the fog coming in, and it makes it difficult for me to find a signal in all the noise. And that causes confusion for me. And it's hard to find my beacon, my North Star sometime. I mean, I've got an overarching purpose, but drilling down to what maybe some of the finer things are and figuring out exactly where do I want to put my time and energy.
Mhm.
How do I want to apply myself? That for me, sometimes that gets a little bit difficult to discern.
Yeah, well, I think we're all there because it's so valuable. We realize the value in it and started appreciating life and the time we have here. We've seen so much death on television and everywhere we look. So it's something to appreciate and make the most out of it. And people don't want to sit around doing something they don't like doing. It's the great resignation is taking place for a reason. It's like, wow, if the pandemic taught me anything, is life is too short.
Yeah.
And so my spirit will die if I continue to do this. I have to follow my calling. And I think people are just doing that, whatever that calling is. It's a relatable thing. And I think so many of us have lost our spiritual homes. As a society, we'd go to church and we'd get fed spiritually. So where do we go for the inspiration in our lives? What replaces the church?
I think crisis can be used here, because I think it sent some people into spiritual crisis because they just don't know what to believe anymore. So we're always looking for the silver lining, right? And so one of the things is that spiritual discomfort, it can squeeze clarity and purpose to the surface as because at least it's my process. When I feel the discomfort, I'm like, ooh, what is that? Why is that there? What do I need to pay attention to? Because I want to find clarity around what is not resonating properly within me that's causing a certain discomfort. Sometimes it's something that I'm thinking, sometimes it's what I'm doing, sometimes it's a combination of both. So I think the positive of losing some of this is that it can really help bring some clarity to what it is that we want and need to do that feels right and good, that causes a peaceful, calm mind and a peaceful, calm body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think it's not so much about us tapping into the higher consciousness. I think it's the higher consciousness lifting us up into it. We're feeling called to be there. We don't know what it is. There's a lot of confusion around this awakening that so many people are experiencing. It's got that magical element to it, as well as the crisis element. So that's the butterfly, isn't it? The caterpillar and the butterfly. Just to wrap up the whole conversation right there in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But seriously, I mean, a spiritual crisis, if anything, it causes us to go within. And we know when our spirit is calling us, we start asking questions like, what's the purpose of life? And why am I here? And when you can see yourself through your spirit's eyes and you ask those questions, that tends to wake us up a little bit and open ourselves up to evolving. And when we're aware of that evolution, it just goes quicker and it's a lot more fun. Awareness. Otherwise it's scary because you're not really sure what's happening, and we can get bullied, spiritually bullied so easily. And so just be aware of it all. So what other activations of awareness can you think of that'll help us along our spiritual journey?
Well, I think, just like I said, paying attention to some of the discomforts, because if we're really bringing our awareness to the situation, it can bring up sensations or feelings in the body. You used the word sensation, sensing earlier. It's an uncomfortable feeling. And so one of the things that we can do is that when we feel that, go deepen into it a little bit and ask, have I felt this before? When did I feel this before? And sometimes you can kind of find the root of what's actually trying to come up in to be unearthed and excavated so that it can go ahead and be released and moved on. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that was a great segue into our pearls of wisdom. So as we wrap up the conversation on adding sparkle to the struggle, we're talking about struggle. We're also talking about what to activate and sprinkle that little fairy dust on. Alecia and I have come up with just some pearls of wisdom, some things that we can do, and little baby steps that we can take a little bit here and there. There might be one that resonates with you. There might be all of them that resonate with you, but if you just take one of these and start applying it and creating an attention and an awareness around it, we're going to raise the vibes on this freaking planet. It's the last thing we do. So, Alecia, why don't you kick it off with one of the pearls of wisdom?
Well, I think a big one for me, I'm not about judging. I'm about noticing and I'm about observing. So to notice your struggle, but don't judge it. The judgment torments you, it tortures you, it creates dis-ease in the mind and the body. So just notice it and then deepen yourself in it and mine it for all the pearls and the lessons that it brings. Because no matter how difficult it is, no matter how uncomfortable, you will grow through it. And when you get to the other side, you want some gems to take away and you want some silver linings to make it all worth it. So that's just one that I use in my life all the time. And it can really make a difference because I think sometimes we identify way too much with the struggle. And so one of the things that I recommend is just to compassionately and neutrally bear witness to your struggle as well as to the struggle of other people. Because one of the things that I notice is sometimes we think that it's our responsibility to take on someone else's struggle and wear that emotionally. And the truth is, if it was ours, it would be our struggle, but it's not. We're bearing witness to theirs. And if you're with somebody that's going through a struggle, just ask them, what can I do to help you? What can I do to support you? Sometimes they'll know and sometimes they won't. But what I know is that the offer and being in the space from a compassionate, empathetic place like that makes all the difference in the world with that connection and somebody feeling seen.
Excellent. And the flip side of that is not being afraid to ask for help if you are the one struggling.
Good one.
And have the courage to be transparent and ask and admit that you are struggling in some way. People want to help. It's our innate nature as a species to help one another.
And so, what do you recommend that could be helpful to raise awareness and help ease that struggle a bit for people?
I believe we have to release spreading the struggle. It's one thing to confide in a friend and a trusted source with your struggle, and it's another thing to spread the struggle so that people are now adopting your struggle and creating more drama and definitely lowering the vibe. So stop spreading the struggle. Be aware of what you are putting out there in the world on social media, as well as using the power of your voice and as you speak and the language you use.
Don't make it viral.
Yeah, we've had enough of those as of late.
It's so true.
I do believe that humility is one of the most beautiful things there is on this planet. And it's one of the greatest leadership characteristic there is, humility.
Yes.
And that's your Facebook post that we started this chick chat with, was you telling the story about your Facebook post. And that was humility. That was a beautiful thing. And people are drawn to that.
I had a couple of people come on and post and thank you for admitting that. That was interesting because I think a lot of us struggle and it's kind of the misery loves company thing. You don't necessarily want somebody else to struggle, but when you find out that they are, it makes you feel not quite as alone. And so one of the things that I was thinking about when I was driving earlier, and I was considering, this podcast on struggle, I started thinking about trauma. Trauma is trauma. Sometimes we have a tendency to compare traumas, that your struggle or your trauma is worse than mine, which ends up causing us to judge where we are or where somebody else is. And so trauma is trauma, and less or more, none of that matters. The bottom line is not to compare yourself to others, because what hurts you and what you're struggling with is what hurts you and what you're struggling with. Comparing it to somebody else's doesn't make yours less or more. Just be in the space with what is and deal with your personal healing and trying to get your balance back as you move forward.
What are some other things that we can do to manage our energy during times of struggle?
Activating your awareness is learning how to manage your energy, right? and what you think and what you do and how you respond and that sort of thing. And there's just a multitude of things that we can do along those lines. We can do Reiki. Breath work is just an amazing practice. That one's really good, and it really helps to oxygenate the body and really helps move energy through it. Meditation. I'll tell you another thing. I've been doing creative things. I've been painting rocks lately, which I never do artistic things
I love
because yeah,
that.
no, it's been fun. It's been a creative little expressive thing that is just mindless and timeless for me. So it's
Yeah.
been an exploration in trying to keep my perfectionism and my personal judgment about my artistic skills at bay. And so it's turned into a little practice for me. But I know that you do a variety of different things, to manage your energy and that sort of thing. What kind of suggestions do you have?
Hey, you unleashing your creativity right now is huge. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that many of us haven't exercised in a long time, many of us since we were children, because it's such an important part of critical thinking and problem solving. I encourage somebody to take some creative activity into their life. And there's the adult coloring books. I have one right here on my shelf, actually.
Yes.
And that opens up that creativity as well. Really powerful stuff at times like this during struggle, because that's a love-based emotion. And I think creativity is what connects us to our creative source. And anytime we can connect with source, we're going to be better off. I'm just gonna say.
Tell it, sister.
Yeah, so I know I mentioned chanting, there's visualization is really powerful, keeping that greatest version of yourself alive and your life and what you want to create, because we're all reinventing ourselves right now. The slate's been wiped clean.
Yes.
We're all starting fresh. We're all in the same place. That's what's so beautiful. We've all been leveled. And so visualization is really key right now.
Mhm.
And if you don't know how to do that, seek a mentor. And Alecia and I, that's what we're here to do, here to help. Reach out at chickstalkingshift@gmail.com if you would like some sage insights or transformation tips. We can help you with that. So as we close up the conversation, any final thoughts?
Well, I think more than anything is just realizing that regardless of what social media says and regardless of what it appears is happening in everybody else's life, you can pretty much be guaranteed that most all of us have something that we're struggling with. And so just remember, don't necessarily see it as something negative. Kind of pull yourself out of the black and white thinking and the judgment of this is good, bad, right, wrong, and just neutrally observe and just bear witness to your struggle and the struggle of others, because that'll create a more calm nervous system and a more calm mind. And so, hey, we've all got it going on. It's rough times right now, and so just be gentle with yourself.
Yeah. Honor yourself
Ugh,
through the process. This has been great fun. I thoroughly enjoyed this chick chat. I mean,
me too. It's not been a
whoever,
struggle. It's
I know.
not been a struggle.
It's not been a struggle, but whoever thought talking about struggle could be so much fun.
Who'd have thought?
Now, when you're adding sparkle, putting a little bling on that struggle, ain't so bad.
Yes, yes, yes. And stop spreading the struggle. No
Yeah.
more. No more of that.
Now, add sparkle.
Yes, that's
All
fine.
right. Keep sparkling.
Yes.
And I love you much.
Love you much. Mwah. Blow up, girlfriend.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
For fun, we just wanted to add a new little segment to our show. This is where you get to learn a little bit more about us and our journeys. And something you might not have known about Alecia is that she actually had a role in the Conversations with God movie with Neil Donald Walsh. Tell us about that, Alecia.
Well, it wasn't really a role. I was there. I'm in the movie. I'm in the church scene in the movie. So yeah, that is a fun fact.
You're an
That was
extra.
I'm an extra, yeah. And so it was just fun to be able to be there for the week and be able to bear witness to hold space. That's why I was there, to hold space for create the container for the movie so that it could go out and do its magic, because Conversations with God had such deep meaning to me in my life. So yeah, fun fact about me.
Yeah, that in fact, fun fact about both of us is that's how we met, through conversations with God and getting involved with the School of New Spirituality. That's where we met years and years ago, working with Neil on his initiative to bring the conversations with God messages to families all over the globe. So we did accomplish that finally through the CWG Family Enrichment Guide, which is available on the cwg.org website.
And so, for those that don't know about Angel, a very fun fact about Angel is that she used to be a Bulls cheerleader when Michael Jordan was playing for the Chicago Bulls. I think that is quite an accomplishment. And it just tickles me every time. I've seen your uniform. You've got the form and you've got your uniform. And that just thrills me. Weren't you even in the documentary, The Last Dance, about Michael Jordan? Was the other one?
They showed my era, of course, that I was there. But I did get to provide a commentary in a documentary, a recent documentary that was done about Michael Jordan. So that was exciting to see Michael Jordan through a lovable, because we were called Lovable Bulls, to see him through the lovable perspective. And having that front row seat on the floor where nobody else had that perspective, Michael Jordan, right under the net. It was really kind of cool. So that is a fun fact. Thank you so much, Alecia. And we'll continue to share little tidbits about our life as we move forward. How come I didn't know you were in the CWG movie?
I don't know.
Well,
how did you not know that?
No, I knew you. I thought you worked like on the set with Lori Farley or did something. You got to be on the set.
Well, I was on the set. I hung out on the set.
That's all I understood.
Oh gosh, no, I'm in it.
Well,
and so is Suki. And so is Julie and Suzanne.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay, this is sounding familiar now.
It's just a quick scene.
Yes.
There's a church scene, and we're just in a real quick church. Yeah, Suki had a speaking part. Stephen asked me if I wanted a speaking part, but I said, no, I just want to be in it. I just want to hold space for the film because that was such an important book for me. And so I chose not to. It's cool.
I love it. So we're just talking about turning off notifications.
Turn off those notifications.
To have a better life, but you better keep those podcast notifications on. So you'll know when to tune in next to Chicks Talking Shift. That's the only exception. Rules are made to be broken after all. We invite you first to sit with us and join us in this conversation. We have a seat here for you, Spirit. Sorry.
I just gotta say, I opened my eyes up for a second, and all of a sudden there's this feather. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that was there. And then it reminded me of the time that I had the peacock fan and we opened up and I had the pink hair.
Oh, yes.
It reminded me of that podcast.
Oh, wait, I screwed up. Okay. Anyway, Heavenly Spirit.
Here I come again.
Okay, you got a seat at the table. Jesus, you always, and you and all your ascended master friends have a seat at our table during these conversations. We ask you to laugh with us as well. We know that struggle is part of the transformation process to take us to the next evolution of humanity.
The struggle is real, baby. The struggle is real.
They're at the table, all right.
Welcome. Pull up a chair.
My hair just started. I got tingles in my head.
Did it? Like one of the cool
okay. So you work through the symptoms.
Those running symptoms.
You're right.
What are the symptoms of running, Angel? How do you know? How do you know when you're running?
Well, when one foot is in front of the other at a pretty quick pace. Oh gosh.
You just might be running.
Yes,
You just might be running if. Quick.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be a fun little segment? I see it at the end, but that doesn't mean that's where it goes.
Yeah. Who are these chicks? Fun fact.
Yes.
Chick
Fun
fact.
fact. Yeah.
Chick fact.
Yeah.
It's
That'd
a
be good.
fact check. It's fact tick.
Oh no, fat chick. A fat chick check. Say that 3 times fast.
Back to chick.
Chick check.
Not fat chick. Fact.
Well,
sound
you
good.
know, I'm overweight. I'll own it. I don't have any
Hear
shame
about
in it.
those girls on that podcast too, and they have the fat chick segment at the end.
Fat chick check at the end. People freaking famous is what they do.
Right.
Oh, we're so sensitive. We're so
Oh, that's so
sensitive.
funny. We
Yeah.
canceled.
Get canceled. We don't even have anything to demonetize.
Not even anybody yet.
Yes.
Inhale love. Exhale everything else.
It's gone. Hasta la vista, baby.